Anthony Joshua, this video is for you. I call out, I wanted to knock you out, and now you're talking shit to say Ajagba. Ajagba is going to beat me. Shame on you. How many times did I call you out? How many times did I ask you to fight in Africa? You don't even feel shame of yourself. I want to fight you. I want to knock you out. Look at Daniel Dubois, broke his nose twice. He knocked you out cold. What happened to me? I'll knock you out in the first round. You're talking about Ajagba. Ajagba is a baby. Wait till you see how I'm going to knock him out. I'll invite you to be there. You're talking shit. I want to fight you. Stop talking nonsense. Now you say you're Nigeria. You're not British anymore. I'll knock you out. I'm African giant. I'm African warrior. I'll knock you out, you. After knocking Ajagba out, I'll knock you out as well.
So that right there is Martin Bakole calling out Anthony Joshua for a fight. Him saying that he broke Daniel Dubois' nose twice, is what I'm gathering, is what he said there. Twice, because we hear about those sparring sessions. And that Daniel Dubois stopped Anthony Joshua in 5 rounds, which he absolutely did. He's mentioned the possibility of fighting Anthony Joshua in Africa, which I would love that. You know, I've said it once, I'll say it again. I would love to see a big-time boxing event in Africa. And Martin Bakole is from the Congo, I believe. I think he might even be brothers with Ilunga Makabu, or cousins. I know he's related to Ilunga Makabu. He's obviously younger. And I believe they're from the Congo, at least I'm fairly sure they are. And obviously Anthony Joshua, native home is Nigeria. So, I mean, there you go. There's a big event in Africa if ever I've seen one. And, you know, just on a side note, I'm really looking forward to whenever Derek Chisora has his 50th fight. I know really I'd rather see him call it a day. But I'd love to see a big boxing event in Africa. I've seen them in Japan, I've seen them in America, I've seen them in Mexico. I think there's even been like a couple of, you know, somewhat reasonable sized cards, kind of like Southern America or South America, I should really be saying. You remember they did a show in Argentina years back. Ovil McKenzie fought on that many years back. I think Martin Murray even fought in Argentina as well. I've seen them all around the world. I've never seen a big time event in Africa, and I'd love that. I really would. Bakole calling Joshua out. He says that once he finishes with Ajagba, I know on the X subtitles it was saying when he finishes knocking out a jackpot. He ain't knocking out a jackpot. He said he's going to be knocking out Ajagba. They obviously got the translator, the subtitling a little bit wrong there. But obviously Martin Bakole making inference to the fact that he is lined up to face F.A. Ajagba next. I believe, or so the rumours were, that obviously we know the February 22nd show in Saudi Arabia is a stacked card. And there was a lot of talk that there was fights actually taken off it, 2 fights in particular. And the rumour mill is that one of the fights that was removed from it, I want to say removed, it's just going to be pushed back onto another show. There's rumours that there's going to be a Riyadh show in March. One of the fights that was apparently taken off it because they didn't want it to go, Eddie Hearn and Frank said, didn't want it to go crazy long, because we've already got, 6, 7 fights. Can you imagine having a 9 or 10 big fight after big fight card? It would go on into the wee hours. It was meant to be Bakole versus Ajagba. So that fight's obviously going to get pushed back. Many of us would have Martin Bakole a heavy favourite against F.A. Ajagba. Yes, F.A. Ajagba can punch, and he can really punch. Like, he is a serious puncher. But he's a very limited fighter. He's very crude, is F.A. Ajagba. He's actually, I believe, Nigerian as well, F.A. Ajagba. And, you know, very serious puncher, but very crude. When he's in there with someone he feels a real perceived threat from, I remember when he fought Frank Sanchez, who you wouldn't associate as being a particularly big puncher. He's decent power, Frank Sanchez. Sanchez boxed rings around him, dropped F.A. Ajagba, and Ajagba just wouldn't let his hands go. Now, if you think that's bad against someone like Frank Sanchez, who is a long-range boxer, he was moving very well in that fight. Bakole is a 300-pound juggernaut who's going to come at you and just break you down with punches to the body and uppercuts. A bit like George Foreman, you know, like this version, like this generation's George Foreman. Not, I'm saying he's as good as George Foreman, but a similar kind of style to what you would have seen Foreman do. They look innocuous, the shots Bakole throws, but there's tremendous power in them. He sets a high pace. He is very physically strong. He seems to be just getting better and better with his trainer Billy Nelson up there in Scotland. Whatever they're putting in those battered Mars bars, they're doing a good damn job. And yeah, he is confident of beating F.A. Ajagba. He's mentioned about, you know, breaking Daniel Dubois' nose in sparring. Basically, in sparring, Martin Bakole is just, according to Billy Nelson, he is it. If it was the sparring version of Martin Bakole turning up, I mean, he'd be undisputed champion twice over. The only reason he wouldn't be undisputed champion once is because he probably vacated to win it again, is what Billy Nelson will tell you. But calling out Anthony Joshua. Now, if they had met peak for peak, I still think that actual fight, when I look at it on paper, it would be quite a rough fight stylistically for Anthony Joshua. Now, this version of Anthony Joshua, listen, Anthony Joshua was mentioned in Tyson Fury, and I can see why, because it's the biggest money fight for probably both of them, outside of maybe a trilogy fight with Usyk for Fury, but that's not going to happen. Yeah, I would give Anthony Joshua a much better chance, and I wouldn't give him much of a chance, but I give him a better chance against Fury than I would against Bakole at this point. Listen, people, Anthony Joshua got absolutely steamrolled by Daniel Dubois. It makes no logical sense for him to fight Martin Bakole. I know Bakole, if he beats a Jagba, isn't he IBF mandatory then? Which, that's a nice little thing to have. He is IBF mandatory, isn't he? I'm pretty sure he is. Or is it WBA? It's one or the other. I'm pretty sure it's IBF. That's all well and good, right? You've got a mandatory title crack. Pretty sure it's either the IBF or the WBA. That's all well and good. You'll get a crack at a world title, but it's an extremely risky fight, and it's a fight at this point that I just wouldn't. It's not worth the reward for Anthony Joshua. And I don't think he'd have a sniff of a prayer of winning. I think Bakole would just walk straight through him like a knife goes through hot butter. I really do. At this point in Anthony Joshua's career, people, it would be like the Tony Yoka fight, only on complete steroids. It would be an absolute. I think Martin Bakole would steamroll Anthony Joshua at this point. Peak for peak, I think it will be still a tough fight for Anthony Joshua. I've always felt that a mover would bother Anthony Joshua, and it did when it came to Alexander Usyk. You only have to look at his amateur fight against Erislandy Savon to know that, alright, Anthony Joshua, when it comes to movement, he's not exactly the best when it comes to fighting a real mover. I'm not talking about a negative fighter, a mover who's also can throw punches. And I also always felt that if you got someone who could maybe take Anthony Joshua's punch and come forward and set a high pace, yeah, you're going to cause him fits. And Bakole, I mean, I think he could have done that with a peak Anthony Joshua. Now, with this version, yikes. Yeah, I think that would be a reasonably easy night for Martin Bakole. He's calling Anthony Joshua out. Do I think he'll get that fight? Not in a month of Sundays would Eddie Hearn or Anthony Joshua would take that fight. I think at this minute in time, they are only looking at the big fights, the fights with the likes of Tyson Fury, or even a Deontay Wilder, which, again, that fight makes a lot of sense. It will probably, that's well past its sell-by date, and it was never a bigger fight than Tyson Fury would be, but nevertheless, it would still do numbers, and it's a fight that you'd probably have Joshua the slight favourite, just because if Wilder had that killer instinct still, but was just completely shot, I'd probably favour Deontay Wilder, because I think that he would just be more willing to land that shot. Anthony Joshua defensively makes a lot of mistakes, and I think that, yeah, Wilder would find him, but he's just not throwing that shot now. So, you take the right hand away from Deontay Wilder, and we see what we have. We don't have much. So they may be the only fights Anthony Joshua was looking to entertain. Bakole calling out AJ. Look, stranger things have happened, but if it did happen, obviously Bakole needs to get by a Jagba, which I get. Look, when you've punching power like a Jagba, anything can happen, but I think most of us are favouring Bakole in that fight. Yo, what do you think would happen if he fought Anthony Joshua? You think that I'm overrating Bakole by picking him and saying that it would probably be a fairly straightforward fight? A lot of people are saying that the win over Jared Anderson, it's flattered a lot of people's perception of Martin Bakole, because a lot of people feel that Anderson wasn't really that good to begin with. I always felt Anderson was a talented fighter, but from a matchmaking point of view, I just couldn't get my head wrapped around why you would put him in with Bakole when he struggled a bit against Charles Martin a year earlier, and you moved him 2 steps back, which made sense at the time, and instead of taking a step forward, you've gone and taken 3-4 steps forward. He's not ready. So in hindsight, you could say that was always going to happen. And that doesn't mean Anderson's a bad fighter. It just means that he bit off way, way, way more than he could chew. Way more. So I think Bakole is a tremendous talent. I think that he's improved a lot over the years. And believe me, he's going to be a nightmare for a lot of these heavyweights. Mark my words. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, as always, if you haven't already. And until next time, people, peace.